Diablo 3, a game 12 years in the making. The sequel to one of the most successful franchises in gaming. Ugh, great. This is exactly what I was hoping would happen. Let's try this again. Diablo 3, a game 12 years in the making. The sequel to one of the most successful Son of a damn it! Screw this. Let's just skip to the griping. Part 1. The griping. If you've watched my other videos, you already know that I'm a smug, shallow contrarian, so it's probably no surprise to you that I didn't really like Diablo 3. That's not to say that I hated it, or even that it was a bad game. In fact, it was skillfully made. Yeah, the Error 37 thing was a pretty big botch on Blizzard's part, but aside from that, the game has mostly had the level of polish you'd expect. The visuals are good, the story is decent enough, the cinematics are top-notch, the classes are varied and entertaining, the gameplay is fast-paced. Diablo 3's ability to vacuum up hours of free time is still there. In fact, I would say that Blizzard succeeded at making the game they set out to make. Notice that I didn't say the game was bad, I said that I didn't like it, because in my opinion, the game they set out to make was a regression from the rest of the series. The cause of this regression was 3 collective misunderstandings about Diablo. 1. Diablo never had a story. 2. Diablo was about clicking and loot. 3. Diablo games should be addictive. Each of these 3 misunderstandings feeds into the others, and distracts us from the real strengths of the first 2 games. Let's look at them in order. 1. Diablo never had a story. With many people, it's taken as given that Diablo's story was only ever an exercise in going through the motions, of finding an excuse to drop the player into the next level to chase down and kill the next boss. This is true only if you mistake quantity for quality. It's true that the story was never particularly long or complicated, but that doesn't mean it wasn't effective. In fact, it was very effective, in that it created and reinforced the atmosphere of the game. More than anything else, it was Diablo's atmosphere that made it a classic. The memory that stays with you after more than a decade is the feel of playing the game, the feeling of unease, the feeling of dread. And with the benefit of hindsight, we can see how expertly Blizzard evoked that feeling in the player. Nearly the entire game takes place indoors, in the claustrophobic confines of a dungeon, where the light only goes so far and something threatening lurks around every corner. You learn the world's backstory by finding and reading a series of books, which all begin with the same phrase.
Take heed and bear witness to the truths that lie herein, for they are the last legacy of the Horadrim.
They have the quality of an epitaph, and you come to realize that you're following in the footsteps of the Horadrim even as you read their gravestone. The plot centers around the story of a king driven mad by the loss of his son, and to corruption by the influence of his advisor. A story where the people you can trust least are those closest to you, and the person you can trust least of all is yourself. Anxiety, claustrophobia, paranoia. This is one of the most psychologically frightening games ever made. Diablo 2 took the same themes into a story with a larger scope. In a clever bit of narrative work, you spend most of the second game trying to track down the protagonist of the first game as he slowly succumbs to corruption. We experience this story through Marius, doomed, pathetic Marius, both complicit in his fate and powerless to stop it, and a deceptively important character. Marius is a mirror of our own progression through the game, driven onward into the exotic, menacing East, following in the Wanderer's footsteps in a compulsion we never really question. Of course we'll move on to the next level, of course we'll beat the next boss and advance to the next act. The implication that we and Marius weren't so different was made with rare subtlety, 7 years before BioShock. The first 2 games of the series showed a mastery of tone and mood, things that are communicated through more than just text or cinematics. They're woven into the experience of playing the game. The best way I can think of to illustrate this is to compare a similar moment from the first and third games. One of the most memorable moments in Diablo was the encounter with the Butcher. Before you even met him, you learned how dangerous he was.
Please, listen to me. The Archbishop Lazarus. He led us down here to find the lost prince. The bastard led us into a trap. Now everyone is dead, killed by a demon he called the Butcher. Avenge us! Find this Butcher and slay him, so that our souls may finally rest.
Then when you finally found him, this happened.
Fresh meat.
I know, gripping stuff, right? But it was. When I first fought the Butcher, my heart was pounding through every frantic mouse click because the atmosphere and the build-up were so well done. Compare this to the Butcher of Diablo 3. Before we even meet him, we're treated to a gloating monologue by Act 1's resident cackling villainess, who then proceeds to introduce the Butcher, as though he were a pro wrestler or something.
Meet the Butcher!
Fresh meat.
I never would have guessed that a giant, cleaver-wielding demon could be so thoroughly unfrightening. It gets even worse in Act 2, when the Butcher and Chris Jericho fight Shawn Michaels and Triple H in a ladder match for the Tag Team Championship. So if the tone and atmosphere of the original games are gone, then what remains? The answer to that question can be found in misunderstanding number 2. Diablo is about clicking and loot. You've seen this one in both previews and reviews. Usually they contain some variation on one of the following phrases. Diablo is mindless fun. Diablo is all about the loot. The core of the Diablo experience is the constant clicking and the loot. Clicking isn't the core of the Diablo experience, it's the surface. It's the opposite of the core. Saying the core of Diablo is clicking is like saying the core of a book is turning pages, or that the core of a movie is sitting in a chair. These are the means by which you experience the content, not the content itself. If you say the core of the experience is the loot, then you're getting closer, but not in a good way. What the original games had, in addition to atmosphere, was a rhythm. You kill some bad guys, you get some goodies. You kill some more bad guys, you get some more goodies. Lather, rinse, and repeat. Always repeat, because that's how you keep them coming back. That's how you keep the carrot dangling right in front of their nose. This is what Diablo 3 preserves, the rhythm of gameplay. Which is fine, but I don't like to think of this rhythm as the core of Diablo, and neither should you. Because this is the game's operant conditioning chamber, something more widely known as a Skinner box. The Skinner box was created by a Harvard psychologist named B.F. Skinner. It can take many forms, but the relevant discovery as far as gaming is concerned is this. Give someone a repetitive task and give them irregular or random rewards for completing that task, and that someone will keep doing that task over and over and over again. Kill some bad guys, get some goodies. Kill some more bad guys, get some more goodies, and every so often you get a really good purple or gold-colored goodie. That's what keeps you coming back. It would be unfair to claim that Diablo 3 is nothing but an exercise in psychological manipulation, but we should recognize that part of the game's hook is the behavior that it conditions in the player. This brings us to misunderstanding number 3. Diablo games should be addictive. Because Diablo 3 certainly is addictive. Once you start playing it, it's hard to stop. You want to kill just one more spawn and clear out just one more level. If you gauge quality that way, Diablo 3 is a high-quality product. But is this really the way we want to judge quality? Is addictive really something games should aspire to be? Keep in mind that this word has a negative connotation in almost every other context. I mean, crack is also addictive, but that's generally not considered a point in its favor. I'm not saying that there shouldn't be cycles of challenge and reward. Those are what make a game instead of just a movie you watch on your computer. At their best, they're what get you personally involved in the events on the screen in a way that passively observing doesn't. But the key is balance, and Diablo 3 has tipped the balance too far to one side. Tone, atmosphere, and mood are secondary concerns, which is to say, everything that creates emotional impact is a secondary concern. The primary concern is the mechanical stuff, the cycle of behavioral reinforcement that gets the player hooked and keeps them hooked. This is why I say that the third game is a regression from the first two. The first two Diablo games were incorrectly thought to be mindless fun, when in fact they were something more. Do you remember when the first screenshots were released, and there was a medium-sized brouhaha over how colorful they were? It was kind of silly, of course, like everything else on the internet, but there was a grain of truth to those complaints. The concern over the game's visual style was just one part of a broader concern, which was that the things that made Diablo more than just mindless fun were being thrown overboard to make room for more clicking and more loot. Now we can see that those concerns were justified. Diablo 3 is a well-made game, a well-polished game, a mostly well-balanced game. But that's all it is, and it should be more. It used to be more. Question and answer section. Question 1. If Diablo 3 doesn't have what I'm looking for, is there some other game I should play? Strange that you would ask such a specific question, but yes, there is. It's called Path of Exile. Path of Exile is an upcoming free-to-play game that has similar gameplay to Diablo 3 but better atmosphere. It also has a great premise. An entire evil continent? Why didn't anyone think of this before? It's currently in beta, but you can get into the beta by buying some of their cash shop currency. Here's the website. Question 2. Damn it. Sorry, question 2. Question 3. What's the next video going to be about, and will it have multiple parts? Again, it's strange that you would ask so specific a question, but the next video will be about the Elder Scrolls series, and yes, it will have at least 2 parts. Question 4. Oh well, never mind. See you next week.